Welcome, everybody. We can start rolling here. Thank you for being here today. My name is Mary Duffs from Northwestern Mutual, and I'll be moderating today's session. Today, we have an informative panel discussion where we'll be talking about how to acquire the right neurodiverse talent for your organization. Creating a customized interview and hiring process removes the barriers for individuals diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and helps you align the best talent for your business needs. You may have an approved business case and are ready to start building your team, but you're not sure where to go from here. Today, we'll discuss how traditional recruiting processes can create barriers for your candidates, how to customize your recruiting process, and how to engage and educate your talent acquisition teams. So how do you go about acquiring the right neurodiverse talent for your organization? We'll check in with our panel of leaders in just a bit to hear what they have to say. Our goal today is that whatever your role may be, that you will walk away with something, a new idea, a fresh perspective, a new strategy that you can apply to be a more successful person in your business. If you're here to learn, well, you're in the right place. Before we begin, we'll take a moment for some housekeeping items. If you have any questions to submit, and if you've been participating in any of the sessions today, you know how this works. You just use the question and answer feature at the bottom bar of your Zoom application. There'll be time at the end of the discussion that will address as many questions as we can. In addition, you will find some additional information about future events in the chat box, so be sure to follow along with that as well. And lastly, I want you to know that we will be recording this session just like we've been recording all of the sessions today. So let's get started. We are excited to be hearing from CAI and Huntington National Bank. Let's review the agenda to give you an idea of what to expect during the next hour. First, I'll take a few moments to briefly introduce the panelists to share a little bit about their background. I'll then kick off the conversation asking questions that draw out some of the high-level themes and ideas for discussion. Then we'll open up the floor and give you opportunity to ask questions. Once again, remember to use that question and answer feature, and we'll do our best to answer the questions in a timely manner. Sound good? Let's get started with the panel discussion. I'd first like to introduce Karis Spence. Karis is passionate about Huntington's purpose to help make people's lives better by looking out for each other. Karis and Huntington's talent acquisition team attract, engage, develop, and retain diverse and inclusive top talent at all levels of the organization. With a big service heart and a passion for advocating for people with disabilities, Karis led Huntington's Adaptability Business Resource Group from January of 2017 to December of 2018. She also serves as past president of Disability in Ohio, is a board member of Deaf Services Center, and also appointed to the Governor's Council for Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. Karis has also been asked to be the keynote speaker at the Ohio Disability Summit in 2020 and was instrumental in implementing Huntington's Autism to Work program. Huntington has received numerous awards due to Karis's and her colleagues' commitment to diversity and inclusion, one of which was receiving a score of 100% on the Disability Equality Index, a national benchmarking tool, for the past 5 years. Karis, welcome to our panel. Now let's introduce Tim Fox. Tim Fox is a client executive for CAI's Autism to Work Neurodiversity Employment Program. With 16 years of C-level sales in IT and pharmaceutical, he has proven success in strategic and consultative sales, building teams and large account acquisition management solutions in healthcare and information technology. Tim has been instrumental in growing the Autism to Work program, which has impacted nearly 300 individuals with autism by establishing and building upon the foundation of their careers. Working with the Autism to Work program is especially personal and meaningful to Tim. He had a brother with cerebral palsy that maintained full-time employment. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks, Mary. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you and Karis. And lastly, I'd like to introduce Emeralda, or Emmy Sioni. Emmy is a quality assurance support analyst for CAI's Autism to Work program. She has extensive experience in blockchain and distributed ledger technology, quality assurance, analytics, and computer programming. Emmy leverages her broad array of experience to bridge gaps that exist between different specialties and professions. In her current role, she's responsible for risk management processes, reporting, policy adherence, and qualitative legal research. Emmy is also an accomplished author, with her work published in Cointelegraph and quoted in Ad Age magazine. She is proudly on the autism spectrum and enjoys the welcoming atmosphere and inclusive work environment of the Autism to Work program. She is thankful for the opportunity to learn new skills, challenge herself, and advance her career in information technology. Welcome to our panel, Emmy.
Hi, Mary. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Okay, let's get started with our panel discussion. All right, this is to all three of you. Can you share examples of barriers that the traditional recruiting process has raised?
Yeah, I'll take this one. For me personally, college degree requirements were very difficult to get around. I think a better solution would be to have something skills or experience based, because a lot of people on the spectrum have difficulty making their way through college and are often unemployed or underemployed. The hardest part for me has always been getting my foot in the door. I think that finding alternative methods to evaluate the skills of new recruits that are custom tailored to the position would be a much better approach. Some examples could be testing for specific skill aptitudes or overviewing portfolios of work. Specifically, the job readiness training at A2W really helped me just get in there and show what I can do. Thank you.
Mary, I'll jump in there as well. I think one area of concern that we have heard from neurodiverse individuals is around communication. I think sometimes there's a concern that what they're conveying may be misunderstood or misinterpreted, or maybe be offensive. And of course, there's no intention to be offensive. I think sometimes there's also missed social cues. An example would be, I was interviewing an individual on the spectrum, and he brought his job developer with him. And I told him that I had been with Huntington over 20 years. And I made a joke that I started at the bank when I was 5. And his job developer laughed, and he looked at me and said, "Was that supposed to be funny?" So I think just making recruiters and hiring managers aware when they're interviewing an individual on the spectrum, that there's no intention to be offensive with regard to communication.
So, I'll just add on to that. So one of the, a couple of examples that we've had at CAI is, just as a reminder, our recruiting and training processes supports the clients throughout the Autism to Work program, A2W. So, for example, and hiring managers, may not accept the job profiles that we provide, and maybe they want degrees where they're not necessarily required for the work they're going to be doing. So that makes it difficult to find the right talent for their organizations when they have that parameter in there. So when bringing in neurodivergent talent, we make sure that they're coached and that they're, that they have the interview questions prior to the interview for the review. So if for example, a hiring manager is unable to attend the interview and they bring in somebody else, that other interviewer, may not have the questions for the neurodivergent candidate that they're being asked and that they didn't prepare for. So they ask them other questions. So, it's kind of hard to assess an individual on the spectrum in a short sort of face-to-face interview, if that makes sense. So, resumes don't necessarily show the full skill set that these folks have. So clients may see the experience, but what we try to do is, let's say we try to extract and interpret from their resumes what they're really good at and what they shine at, so that that's part of the prep work that we do to get through some of those barriers within the traditional recruiting process, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Perspective from all three of you. Okay, the next question to Tim and Karis is, how did your organization customize the recruiting and interviewing process to attract the neurodiverse talent?
So I'll go first, Karis, here, if that's okay. So we started the Autism Store practice back in 2013. And so over the course of that time, we've sort of customized the process, to where we're trying to get to know the individuals, to ensure that they're right fit for the job. So, for example, we have what we call meet and greets, where we will either bring them into the office, or they will, or we'll do it remotely, where we get a chance to, it's about 3 hours long, where we'll spend the first 40 minutes or so kind of talking about the program and what we're doing. And then we spend the next 2.5 hours kind of where we get a chance to kind of assess them. And we have, our outreach team is with them during this time. And then we also, once that's complete, if it's something that they'd like to do, we have what we call our JRT, which is our job readiness training. And that's a 5-day sort of workforce development program. So that simulates the work week. So, we want to make sure these folks are ready to go on that first day. So it gives the individuals an opportunity to showcase their skills and abilities in a supportive setting. So, for example, they participate in work and in small group settings, and they complete individual projects and team projects as well. We teach about workplace communication, business etiquette, employment expectations, some resume tips and interview skills. And we also get a chance from the client at this point to get an idea of what sort of technologies that they're using, so we can sort of integrate that into our job readiness training. So I also like to say, well, we also kind of mimic the work week. So they come in at 8:30, they get a break at 10, they get lunch at noon, they get a break at 2:30, and they get home at 4:30. So we try to mimic the work week as best that we possibly can, so that when they actually start on the job site, they're actually, or either remotely, depending on what the company's doing, that sort of lowers their anxiety, because they're off and ready to go on that Monday. So that's just one of the ways that we've sort of customized the process to make it easier for both the folks that are on spectrum and also the client as well.
And I think what's made Huntington very successful in hiring neurodiverse individuals is building relationships with our community agencies and our vocational rehabilitation organizations. And as an example, a few years ago, our director of talent acquisition asked me to attend a meeting, and they were talking about the changes to the 503C regulation. And so she gave me an address and a day and a time, and I thought I'll just kind of show up and sit in the back and take some notes. And when I arrived to that meeting, the head of disability in Ohio saw me registering and saw that I was from an employer. And she asked me to be on the employer panel at this session. And I didn't tell her this, but I planned on showing up, sitting in the back and taking notes. And she wouldn't take no for an answer. Next thing I know, I'm sitting at the front of the room and ask the person next to me, who our audience is. I speak on different panels, so I kind of pulled a presentation out of my hat and just went with it. And it was talking to a group of intervention specialists throughout Ohio that were trying to get their students hired. So after that session, I attended one of Disability In's webinars, and the current president introduced me as a new board member. So I didn't know that I had gotten promoted, but I had. And a month or so later, she sent me an email and asked me to be on the executive board. So I was attending my first board meeting, and Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities was there. And they were talking about doing a project search with Fifth Third Bank. And the more I heard about the project, I thought, if Fifth Third can do it, so can Huntington. And really started our partnership with OOD 5 years or so ago. And we started with meeting them and identifying positions, high turnover positions, and asked them to provide candidates that were interested in those roles. And so kind of fast forward to today, That relationship has enabled us to hire over 55 individuals with disabilities into roles at Huntington. And I still meet with a representative at OOD every other week. We exchange feedback on candidates. We get candidates to the right recruiter. And I think building those relationships has just really opened the floodgate to other agencies reaching out to us, wanting to partner with us. I think another key to our success is having one point of contact at your organization, and that person's me. This is not my job description. You know, I'm a senior recruiter, and just due to my passion, I had a sister that had a disability who's now deceased, but the passion of mine to advocate and help individuals with disabilities, I've just taken on a hybrid role that I've kind of built for myself. I meet with all the individuals that we get as referrals in person if they're in Columbus, and make sure that we have a good match in terms of placing those individuals into roles that are fulfilling to them, that the work environment is conducive, and also that the hiring manager is someone who is passionate and willing to take the time to train and make sure that that individual is successful. We also have done job shadowing for individuals who are interested in a role, but maybe want to see more about what that position entails. And so we are always happy to schedule a job shadow with an individual to come in, work in that role in that department to see if that's something that they want to do.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim and Karis. I am just blown away with the information that you both just shared. I wish all companies had or gave individuals the opportunities like you've been giving them. Emmy, did you have anything that you would like to add about your experience, your recruiting process experience?
No, but I do want to piggyback on what Karis said in that building relationships is huge and that hands-on evaluation is incredibly important.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I work with a lot of individuals, or know a lot of individuals with a disability, and communication is key. It's key to all relationships, right? So good points. All right, thank you, all three of you. We are going to jump to a quick soundbite from Autism to Work's director, Wayne McRae. He'll share an example from a candidate's perspective and how important a customized interview process is for their success. It's only about a minute long.
In fact, I often ask some of our associates to compare the CAI experience versus traditional interviews. And one response that stands out was a reference to sitting before a team of individuals whose sole purpose, in his opinion, was to find ways to eliminate him from the interviewing process. John later shared with me that whenever he left interviews, traditional interviews, it was always with the feeling that he would never be hired. Why? Because anxiety kicked in. Being asked double questions, two-part questions, and not being able to process and respond appropriately. And so in essence, the CAI process provided him with the opportunity to express himself in a very non-threatening environment.
Awesome.
You know, and just to piggyback a little bit on kind of what Wayne said, along our processes, when we have our job readiness training that I was telling everyone about, that JRT, that's 5 days, that really technically is the interview for us. So that gives us an opportunity to really sort of assess their skills, assess their demeanor. You know what I mean? It's a very non-threatening sort of atmosphere. So, and the nice thing about it, that I like to tell everyone, is that we don't charge the clients for that. That's part of our upfront investment in the Autism to Work practice. So, you know, that's on us, because we want to make sure that when we're placing these folks, that we're finding the right job, the right place for them to be, you know, with the right manager and with the right team lead, you know, so that everyone involved is successful through the whole program. So, I mean, that's another piece I kind of left out that I thought was really important to kind of bring through, that the interview process that we do is not a sit down in front of someone with a suit. It's a whole 5-day process that we do.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this goes back to Karis and Tim. How do you engage and educate your teams to align with your organization's neurodiverse goals?
So I can go ahead and talk about Huntington. So what we did was we brought OOD into Huntington, and they provided ADA or training on how to hire individuals with disabilities or neurodiverse individuals. So we kind of started with that foundation of training for all of our talent organization in terms of our recruiters. We also at Huntington have a very strong foundation in diversity, equity, and inclusion. It is in the DNA of our company. And so really it was not a hard sell, if you will, at all for my fellow recruiters to help in our efforts, to hire more individuals with disabilities or neurodiverse individuals. It's about, I think, building awareness, building an education. And I feel very, very fortunate to be with a team that all supports this. And as I said before, I serve as the main contact, and then I work with our fellow recruiters in advocating for the individuals that have applied with us. And a perfect example is today, as part of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, OOD was doing virtual interviews. And I scheduled or signed up to interview from 10 to 12, 6 individuals. And I heard from OOD last Friday that there were 16 individuals that wanted to interview with Huntington. So I reached out to my team very quickly and said, I know it's short notice, but can anybody else, either do a 10 to 12 or a 1 to 3 slot today so we get everybody interviewed? And immediately I had, 3 people reach out and say, I can take 10 to 12, and I can take 1 to 3. And so just very, very fortunate that I work for a company and work for a team that supports this endeavor.
Well, and on the CAI side, as far as, how do we educate in our internal talent acquisition teams to align with the process? So what we did was when we started this back in 2013, one of the, I'd say, foundational pieces that we put together is that we built a team of outreach and development specialists team that's exclusively with our Autism to Work practice. And so then these individuals have the right interests, demeanor, approach, and passion for working within this organization and employing neurodiverse talent. So one of the things that we look for with that outreach team is, individuals that can communicate with job coaches and agencies and employment organizations effectively to evaluate and promote the program. So they're always kind of, when we start a new geography, like when we were in Columbus with Huntington, we met with the OD that she was talking about. We also met with Goodwill, several other agencies within Columbus. And so, we've done that obviously in Chicago here because that's where I'm based. We've done a lot of work there. So we have approximately a little over 500 partners that we work with, and we have a pretty strong referral base. And so what I like to say, and we, Rhonda and Sherry, who work with us in that outreach develop, they're so awesome. And if somebody passes along a resume to me, or someone reaches out to me and says, I have a son or daughter on the spectrum that's looking for employment, one of the things that our outreach team, we guarantee that we'll at least within 48 hours have an initial conversation with this person over the phone. And I think that's really super, because then we at least get them in the database, you know what I mean? And so, our goal is to, we want to get the right person in the right place to start, and all of us, including myself at CAI, all of us within the Autism to Work sort of vertical, I would say, we're all trained, we're all autism certified is what I like to say, through the IBCCES, which is the International Board of Credentialed and Certified Educational Standards. So, it's a great program. It doesn't take very long. And so we're all kind of certified, but we all share the same passion about, wanting to make sure that we're helping these folks. And I don't really like to say that we're helping them find jobs. I think but at the Autism Work program is to kind of establish careers for these folks. We want them to be able to thrive. And so we allow our clients after a year, if they want, to actually hire these folks full time if they want. Because they're, obviously they're contractors with us for a year. And if they want to hire them on after that, we don't charge a fee, and we let them do it because we want them to really sort of establish and run with their careers. And because the organizations like at Huntington, they're, as Kara's could attest to, they're really finding the business value that these folks are bringing to the table. I had one CEO of an organization tell me, Tim, he goes, I'm really tired of admiring our problems. And he goes, I want to start solving our problems. And he said, Tim, your teams are doing that. And he goes, that's really something that you guys should be proud of. So that was one of the greatest compliments I think I've ever gotten about the whole program and our acquisition teams. And it's a testament to Sherry and Rhonda and our whole outreach and development team.
Oh my gosh. I'm sure other people feel the same way as I do, but just this information is just fantastic. And you know, what Karis was talking about is, you know, culture basically of your company, you know, it is really what it boils down to. And Tim, you were talking about how, you know, engagement and just getting the right people in the right places. And just that you are able to contact people within 48 hours. That is just amazing. As a parent of a child with special needs, I'm lucky to get somebody to contact me within 2 months. So, so that is absolutely fantastic. So thank you, panelists, for sharing your insights and experiences. So how do you acquire the right neurodiverse talent for your organization? Well, here's a recap of what we learned today. Traditional recruiting processes create barriers for candidates that you need to reinvent the process to make it successful. Customize your organization's recruiting and interviewing processes to attract and hire neurodiverse talent. And engage and educate your talent acquisition teams to align with your new processes. Thank you for such thoughtful answers. And we are going to get to the audience questions. But before we do, I would like to go back to our panelists just one more time and ask all three of you, what are the key takeaways that you would like to highlight? Anyone who would like to start?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I would start with, there's a lot of talk about communication I've noticed over this whole process. You know, Tim has been talking about getting back within 48 hours. Karis has talked about just really talking to people and building relationships. And I would say the key to both of these things is listening. I would say you have to listen to the neurodiverse talent that is already in your organization. Talk to them about what their needs are and how the recruiting process can be made easier for them. And, you know, just listen to people's stories, listen to what people have to say, and really take the time to truly listen and hear.
And Mary, I guess I would have 3 takeaways for our audience today. The first of all, I think it's helpful to get the buy-in of your CEO of your organization. And again, I'm very fortunate that I have the buy-in and support of my CEO. And it was actually him that recommended that we look into doing an Autism to Work program. When I was the head of our adaptability business resource group, he called me and said that he had seen a segment on 60 Minutes where Ernst & Young, Microsoft, and Chase were implementing an Autism to Work program. And he said, this looks interesting, let's look into it. Well, when the CEO calls you and says, let's look into something, you look into it, right? I had no idea where to start. I've never implemented an Autism to Work program and just started reaching out to my connections. And that I started with OOD. And they told me that Chase was partnering with CAI, and they helped me get connected with Sherry Craig, who Tim mentioned. And so I had a call with Sherry Craig on a Friday. And that following week, I flew to Las Vegas to go to the Disability in the national organization. They have a conference every year. And I was walking into the breakout group that was talking about Autism to Work. And there at the front of the room was the head of Chase's Autism to Work program, Microsoft's head of their Autism to Work program, and Ernst & Young's head of their Autism to Work program. And I thought, I'm getting chills now just thinking about it. I thought the stars are aligned. I am in the right place. So I just went up to the individual that was head of Chase's program at the time and just asked him, you know, bank to bank, what were some positions that you started with that were successful? And he told me. And so I came back to Huntington and reached out to those business heads and proposed an Autism to Work program. I had CAI come in and do a presentation. And I think they came in 2 or 3 times and proposed a couple different lines of business. And for whatever reasons, it wasn't the right timing or they didn't have the budget available. And I just happened to be working on some IT positions, which wasn't my area of responsibility at the time. But I mentioned to the woman who was head of this program that I was trying to implement an autism to work program. And she said, well, you need to talk to so-and-so. And so I did. And she was as passionate as I was about it. And we went to the chief technology officer. We built a business case and he was all for it. And we were off to the races. And so we implemented our first Autism to Work program in partnership with CAI last September. And we converted the 3 individuals that we hired to Huntington colleagues last month. And we are in the process of hiring 4 more contractors through CAI to start the program November 1st. So just really excited again. Just don't be afraid, I guess is my second takeaway. Again, I had no idea how to start the program, but just reached out to resources and learned kind of as I went. And I guess my third takeaway is just never give up. You know, I had a couple different lines of business that we proposed the idea to. And again, it wasn't personal, just wasn't maybe the best timing or again, wasn't in the budget. But I just kept asking until I got a yes. So never give up.
That's awesome. I would also just kind of piggyback on a little bit what Kara says about my takeaways, and that is identify partners within your organization that have the same values, and views of the other organization. And I would say find the right internal advocates, as she had mentioned. That she had the buy-in of the CEO. That makes it go a lot smoother and a lot faster when you get executive buy-in, for these neurodiversity employment programs. And it's really significant to the success, because when you run into barriers, they can certainly help you get through that. I mean, for example, at the largest law firm in the world in Chicago, which is in Chicago, where Emmy works, we've actually, the CEO is a good friend of mine, and it was one of those things I went and talked to him about. And next, he connected me to the CIO, who connected me to the people in the risk management division, and it kind of took off from there. I think another takeaway would be that, it's important for organizations that are building a neurodiverse team to determine budget and scope of the job profiles. I mean, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. So a lot of the current jobs that you have out there that you're looking for to fill, especially ones that have a lot of turnover, those kind of roles, they're roles that that folks on Spectrum can actually excel at. And then I think that the last thing I would say is the win-win of this is it really creates a cultural shift within your organization, and the creativity and innovation and change in the way of thinking and the way of building careers within your organization. This is definitely one of the side notes of one of the really positive things that happen when you really get when you get a program like this up and running and get it started. So I just get real passionate. I could talk about it forever, but I just, it's one of the great things about this thing is, seeing the folks really sort of establish their own careers within these organizations and thriving at the same time.
Well, fantastic. I mean, you can just hear the passion in both of your voices, and those are the people that you need in your positions. And Emmy, thank you so much for sharing your story and your own personal experience. It means a lot to all of us here. So I think we can reach out for some Q&A. It's been a great discussion so far. Carrie, are there any questions?
Yes, there is. Just back up here. There's a question that said, I'm curious, especially for Emmy, do you differentiate, I can't say that word, sorry, between the word neurodivergent and neurodiverse? My understanding is that neurodiverse refers to the population that includes both neuromajority and neurodivergent humans. For some example, my family is neurodiverse as it includes young autistic adults. Those for Emmy.
Emmy, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry, it sounded like you cut out a little bit there. I'm going to be honest. I personally haven't given it a lot of thought. but I do definitely prefer the neurodiverse, neurodivergent language set over ways that this was previously discussed.
Good answer. I know sometimes as a parent, I don't want to say the wrong word. I don't want to use a descriptor that might be not used any longer or considered politically incorrect or inappropriate. So I think we've all come to the conclusion that neurodiverse is the best that we can use thus far, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Carrie?
I do not see any at this time. Does anybody have any questions? You can unmute your mic and ask them yourselves and turn on your camera if you'd like as well, if you don't want to chat in the chat box.
I do have a question for either Karis or Tim. How do candidates find current openings in your organization?
I can go. All of our openings are on www.huntington.com and our careers page. And Huntington just merged with another bank in June of this year. And we're actually having our conversion this weekend. So we have approximately 800 openings. So we're looking for a lot of people to hire. So if you know anyone looking for work, please send them our way. And that's how we apply, is online.
And then at CAI, we have it's www.cai.io/A2W and then -contact, and one of our outreach specialists will then automatically get an email, saying, with your information on it, and they will reach out to you. So they'll definitely follow up either Sherry or Rhonda or someone along those lines. So they'll definitely reach out to you that way. So it's a good question. Yeah, it's definitely on our website.
Do any of you have things capable to adapt your online application for individuals who may be visually handicapped? I know we have a difficulty with that here at Northwestern Mutual.
I guess at Huntington, I'm trying to think, not that I'm aware of. A lot of times when we're working with individuals, of course, we're happy to help if an individual is having difficulty applying. Or I know in a lot of cases, the job developer is a huge resource in helping individuals apply online. Does that answer your question, Mary?
Yes, it does. I was wondering also if there's an application that you would recommend or anything that might make applying to a position easier for an individual, besides having somebody next to you help you fill out the application.
I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not really sure either. But I mean, I know that once they put their contact information into at least into ours, I'm sure Karis is the same way. Someone will be reaching out to you at some point, soon. As long as you're, I think that most people that are applying will be able to at least able to enter their contact information and how to get a hold of them. So, I mean, and Sherry and those guys would definitely be able to, kind of reach out to them and kind of take it from there. At least, make sure that they're in the database and that they're having, initial conversations. That makes sense.
Sure. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay.
That we're definitely trying to work on here at Northwestern Mutual. So,
and
no problem.
Mary just offered too. Will the audience members have my email address and Tim's email addresses? If anyone wants to reach out to me separately after the call, if someone is having difficulty applying, always happy to help.
Yeah, me too.
fantastic.
Yeah, pretty easy. You can find me on LinkedIn and whatever. My address is in there too. That's fine.
Okay. Carrie, would you be able to share that in the chat?
Sure, I can go ahead and put their email addresses in there.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
And maybe one last question, if you all don't mind.
Sure.
How can other organizations, besides the contact, I guess, you've given us your email addresses, but is there any other way that they can partner with you besides reaching out to you? Or any other recommendations that you might make?
Well, as Tim said, we're both on LinkedIn, so that would be a way to connect with us. I think, we're all pretty much in this virtual environment. So there's not a lot of, I guess, outside activities maybe that we would partner on. We're huge in the communities at Huntington, lots of volunteer activities. But I think just based on the pandemic, so many things are virtual. So I guess,
Yeah.
unfortunately, not a lot of events, I guess, to partner with, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I think another place that, Karis, I would agree. I think that's just, building relationships with other autism support organizations and colleges and universities and see what they're doing. And to see what, there's Autism Speaks and Autism Society of America, and there's other places like that, there's definitely organizations out there that you can, try to partner with that can help you with, sort of the networking piece of this to try to meet other folks if that's helpful. I think that's a good place to go too,
That's a great idea, Tim. And we're a corporate sponsor of Autism Speaks. We do the annual walk every year. And again, like I said, I think it's been virtual the past couple of years based on the pandemic, but we have a very strong relationship with Autism Speaks, and they're just full of resources, always happy to help, just a great organization to partner with.
Great advice. Thank you both. Yes, you answered my question perfectly. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, if there are no other questions, I think, unfortunately, our hour together will be over. Thank you again to our panelists. You were fantastic. And most importantly, thanks to all of you for your attention and participation. I think this was a really good discussion. If you're interested in learning more about the Autism to Work program or know somebody that is, the contacts again will be in the chat. And thank you all and have a great rest of your day.